that? Oh God, I'm gonna die. I gotta get this on camera. No.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Marino Show. I'm your host, David Marino, and today I'm speaking to John Roisland, the host of the Witching Hour podcast. He does horror interviews. He does a lot of different things on his channel in the horror genre, which everybody knows I love. John, I'm so happy to have you here today. I feel like we're kindred souls, just both loving horror.
Thank you for having me, man. I really appreciate this. I am quite honored to be on the show.
Well, I have to say, I've watched some of your episodes and I love what you do.
Thank you.
I think that you bring like a really good perspective to the horror movie genre. And for you, how did you start the podcast and really what got you into doing your own show?
So, long story short, 12 years ago, I started a Facebook horror fan, just a group, just a page just for horror fans, just to post whatever. And it got so big. I mean, I was on it 24/7. It seemed like it overtook me. It really did. Um, and I had a couple different people approach me and say, you should really take this to the next level, which was make a website. And I was meeting tons of filmmakers and indie actors and so forth. So I'm like, all right, got together with a couple trusted people that I had never physically met, just became really good friends with on Facebook. And we built the beast. We opened up a website. And I mean, it was a labor of love. Obviously, no one's getting paid for it. As a matter of fact, we had to pay every month for the service for GoDaddy. Um, and you know, my phone would go off 2 o'clock in the morning. Hey, man, such and such just passed away, or they just released a trailer for this movie. Do you want me to do it, or are you awake? Or we had to actually try to coincide so that way no one would be doubling up on the same thing. And everybody had their own 9 to 5 jobs. So it really became a chore. And we really kind of got burned out from it. And then all of a sudden, everybody started doing podcasts. So through our website, a couple people wanted to try, as well as myself, let's incorporate an audio, or you can do video if you want, whatever, interview or your own little movie review, whatever you want. We'll try the podcast aspect of it and we'll just incorporate it through. And then everybody kind of had their own entity under the umbrella of the website. And then some people really thrived with it. Others were and then all of a sudden the writing stopped and I just shut the doors with the website itself. But I kept going personally with my own entity was the Witching Hour, even through the website. And even after having closed the doors, I took a little break, but I could just never stop. I loved doing what I was doing. I loved talking to people. I loved talking about my passions in the horror genre or even video games. Not that I'm a gamer, but stuff related to it, or even concerts and bands and whatever the hell I want to talk about, because even though it was horror related, it was still my show. I don't say that arrogantly, but people have commented and said, dude, that really has nothing to do with horror. I said, yeah, you're right, but it's my show. And if it's something that's imperative or important to me, I'm not going to start up a whole nother show just to talk about this one item. And I always say during the show, this is non horror related, but here it is anyway. Whether it's of any interest to you, you don't watch the episode or you say something nasty about it, that's fine too. So I just have not been able to stop. I absolutely love the people that I've met. I've had so many filmmakers send me their products to watch and review, and then I will always try to set up interviews with them or the cast members and help try to support the indie horror scene. I have been very fortunate. I have talked to a few major film actors and a couple filmmakers, actually. So it's really taken me far. Like I said, it is a true labor of love. Um, the people that support me, um, Tony Covington is my brother. He is also, for those of you who don't know that name, he is the host of Hack's Horror Show. He is Hack. He is now producing my show. So it's a long journey. It's hard to get people on social media platforms to click a link and follow through and actually watch a lot of them. And then on top of that, when I ask them to please subscribe, getting those numbers up is really, really hard to do. Because again, unless you're on YouTube, you don't want to have to go to Facebook. If you're on Facebook, you see it, hey, I'm going to click a like or a heart. I might get back to it and watch it, but right now I'm just scrolling and I do the same thing. So I don't blame people for it, but it is really hard to get those numbers up. And I refuse to pay all those services that are out there just to get my numbers up so I get better distribution through YouTube. So I know that was supposed to have been a long story short, and I apologize. I kind of went sideways on it with a lot of different aspects, but that is what has brought me today to where I'm at. And I just love doing it. I really do.
I agree with everything that you said. I'm in the same boat. My show airs on Austin Music Television. It's a public access channel here in Austin. But I run into the same thing. It's hard to get people to click. It's hard to, but I'm like you. It's like I'm a firm believer that people who want to find that kind of content will find it because we're kind of niche. I think, I like a lot of the sort of the 80s slasher and some of the obscure ones that not everybody has
Sure.
known.
Right.
But I think there's an audience for everybody. And that's why I love supporting people like yourself, indie filmmakers. I actually like to support the indie and underground more than commercial because I feel like we're all in the same world. Just,
Yes.
and it's not about, for me, it's not, sometimes I think you find competition, especially in the social media world. And I hate that. I'm like, if somebody watches another show and they see a great interview, great. If something they say pushes to my channel or something I say pushes to their channel and they get more subscribers or vice versa, that's the whole point to me. And like you, I firmly am about doing it because I love it. I don't have to do it. I have my 9-to-5 job, but I love talking about horror movies and all horror related things because I find, and I'm going to let you answer this, I find that I really resonate with the horror culture, the people in that world, because most of them are very supportive. I think we all kind of beat to a different drum and they're okay. And it's not a place of judgment. How do you feel about
Yes.
living?
I was kind of foregoing and reading where you were going with that question. And society nowadays, we all hate each other. Everybody, you offend me, I offend you. I'm going to unfriend my lifelong friend because we don't see eye to eye on whatever it is. I'm not even going into politics. But, and that's just the way society is today. You can go into the horror genre, which is a very tight knit group of people. And I will love Halloween. You'll love Halloween, and we're gonna bitch and we're gonna yell at each other on some kind of social media platform in a group. This movie sucked. That movie was awful. This one was great. Blah 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 blah. But at the end of the day, you're still on my friend list, and I'm still on your friend list. So we do argue about things, but like I said, because we are such a tight knit group of individuals with such a wide range of, from horror to, especially this time of year, to haunt and spooky season and so forth. And God, for, I mean, when you talk about the horror genre, there are so many different levels of film. um oh, this is a piece of crap, this is trash, this is, this is too real for me on some extreme films. Oh, this is Hollywood crap. But at the same time, no one unfriends each other. We always still end up supporting each other in the horror industry, and I absolutely love that about us.
So I have to ask, and this is a hard question to answer for those of us that are in this world and love it so much, but is there a certain area, like you said, there's so many different levels to horror and there's different genre, I mean, different types of horror movies within, but what do you like specifically? Like, is there a world in horror that you gravitate to, or is there a few films that really kind of did it for you from a young age that got you hooked into the world?
My father was a really big movie buff, and there were films I was and was not allowed to see. Maybe it was a little too violent, or maybe, I mean, I can remember sitting on the couch late at night. I couldn't sleep. I'd come downstairs and sit next to him, and he'd be watching a movie, and he'd put his eyes over me because there was a pair of boobs on the screen or something like that. All right, no big deal. And then eventually he'd start lifting his hands and kind of, yeah. But he was a big influence in movies itself, for the love of movies with me. Another friend of mine growing up really introduced me to a lot of horror movies. Um, First horror, the one that sticks out with me the most growing up, I can remember sneaking down the stairs at one time and watching better part of American Werewolf in London with my father, and I was amazed. The transformation scene. I don't care what movie you put up against it, you're never going to beat those special effects, in my opinion. Um, from that day forward, it just grew. It really did. Um, Texas Chainsaw Massacre is my all-time favorite film, period, of any movie genre that's out there. That is my all-time number one. I have Leatherface tattooed on my leg. I've got tons of little Leatherface toys and all kinds of probably non-adult crap that I shouldn't have wasted my money on, but I have them. Um, as far as a certain genre, there really isn't one for me. I'm just, that movie was great. That movie was great. Um, a lot of people give the Purge series a real hard time. There's just something about the basis of the movie that I think is incredible. Speaks about society and the what ifs, and you can't really deny the facts of a couple years ago that, people were getting ready to have, police state riots in the streets and start locking your doors at night. And I just think it kind of had a flip the coin of what society could honestly have turned into. So I really give credit to those movies, even though they are, yes, extremely far fetched. It's also Hollywood money, so you've got to give them that big Hollywood bang. So I don't, I credit them for what they did, and I am entertained with them. But I will admit, I think they are scary as shit if you sit down and actually don't just watch the movie, but think about, my God, what if this really had happened?
The scariest thing to me is something that could really happen. I mean, that's
Right.
horror,
Right. Yes.
And sadly, in the place that we are in society, when you think about the purge, it's like, are we that far? Is it that far fetched anymore? I mean, some of the things that we used to think were far fetched, even in the 80s, it's like today you think, what the hell? Like, is
Right.
this really where we are? So I think some of the stuff in horror that's been represented, there's a reality, there's a base to it that's reality based, that
Mhm.
it is the worst case scenario. But, sometimes we're seeing that now. It's kind of, it
Right.
was like sort of a foreshadowing of what
Right.
was to come.
Sure.
Um, yeah. I have to ask you too. You do your show, you do, like you mentioned, I do the same thing. I do horror, but I'll talk about musicians and other things because I
Mhm.
like pop culture in general.
Sure.
But is there something that you can think of that you've done so far in your show that really is a standout for you, or something that you walked away feeling like, hell yeah, I did that. That was awesome. Is there a show or a person you've interviewed that just kind of stands out for you?
Wow, that's a really tough question. Every show that I can get through that I don't have to stop and start all over, it's always a good one. And with that being said, what I mean is I also do movie reviews or a product review, and movie reviews for me, I've told friends of mine I hate my solo shows. Solo meaning like a movie review. I'm not interviewing somebody because I just feel like I'm kind of talking in a giant circle and I'm redundant, or maybe I didn't really hit high points or low points. I just try to tell people how I feel about the movie instead of having something scripted, other than notes about actors' names, production companies, release dates, and so forth, just to give a little bit of actual physical information to the listeners. Um, so the high point for me is when the show is over and I get a message back from whoever it was that I was just interviewing, and especially if it's someone that I know has been in the media eye, whose name is out there, and they send me a compliment. Great show, had a great time, can't wait to come back, and actually keeps in touch with me. There have been shows that I have been nervous about going into. I recently interviewed Matthew Ulm, was or is the director of the Victory International Film Festival that just happened this weekend in Indiana, along with Greg. Oh my God, I'm blanking. He was a producer from um, the Blair Witch Project. They were celebrating the 25th anniversary, along with PJ Starks, filmmaker, who is also pushing um, his new release, New Fear's Eve. Having those three people together on my show at once, Blair Witch Project, I have the huge amount of respect for, to have anybody associated from that show and the film director of an international film festival on my show. I was actually nervous as hell going into it, and I told them that prior to the show. I was actually kind of shaking. Um, Went through it, had a great time. Everybody had a great time, and I got compliments afterwards from everybody. That to me is a job well done. It's not because they said, "Hey, you're so good, you should be on one of my movies," or "You should be working for me." It's just they thanked me and they said they had a great time, because they've had interviews before, tons of other ones, and they might be saying, "Hey, thanks for your time. I had a great time on your show too." It's the polite thing to do, but I appreciate hearing it. It makes me feel better about what I'm doing and makes me look forward to doing another one. I'm just very thankful. People don't have to do my show. They could look at my numbers on YouTube. I just broke 200 this weekend subscribers. That's a big feat for me. I'm really proud of myself. I look at other channels and they've got hundreds of thousands of views on one post. But then someone told me, they're like, "Well, how long have they had their show going?" And I'll look at it, 5, 7, 10 years. All right, well, I'm at a year's mark. I've got 200 people. I do go on social media and I make posts. Hey, do me a favor, take 5 seconds and just go subscribe for me. I don't care if you like horror or not. As a personal friend of mine, go subscribe. And they do. And they support me. And just that right there just means the world to me. It really does.
And speaking of subscribing, if people do subscribe to your channel or your social media platforms, you talked about you do movie reviews and interviews, but what will they experience if they follow your channel, and what kind of things can they look forward to seeing?
A wide variety. And what I mean by that is, yes, I do have filmmakers, I have actors. As of lately, I have grown up being, again, with thanks to my father, always been in real big with music. I grew up listening to classic rock all my life, and that when I grew up into my own, I became a metalhead, hardcore, heavier, the darker, the heavier, the better. So I figured, you know what? There's a band that I like. All right, well, I'm going to reach out to them and try and put them on my show and help support them as well. So I'm going to go everywhere from the movies to most recently bands that I've had on. I just had Bless the Dead on from, where are they from? From Georgia, I believe, from Atlanta area. I've got another returning band next week called Coventry Carols. Um, I also do product reviews, obviously movie reviews. Hell, my son bought me one of um, the new Ghostbusters, the custom popcorn bucket things of Slimer. I did a whole thing on, how the movie theaters are coming out with new, popcorn buckets and so forth like that, product reviews, and just basically anything that I can think of. And I also offer people to send me messages. They can contact me through my email, or, after they subscribe, they can then leave me a comment down below. And I always ask people, what do you want to see? What would make my show that much more interesting to you? Because I'm not doing this so I can hit record, stop it, and then rewatch myself. I'm not pretty enough to look in the mirror in the morning and then have to watch myself for another half an hour on my phone, or even on my Roku channel, which is all for free if you download that too. So I do this for the people. And some people have commented, great show. Other people have said, you're completely wrong, you're an idiot. And that's great. I love that. Not because you're calling me an idiot, but because you're showing me your opinion, your side to it. And that's what makes it thrive. Yeah. And I will review, if somebody sends me a film and they've asked me, would you please? All right. They took their time to reach out to me. And I have had some, I'm sorry, folks, I've had some really bad movies sent to me. Some extremely micro budgeted films that just don't make sense, are full of bad acting, zero budget. Again, I give them credit because they're out there doing it. They're, whether it's with their phone, handheld camera, whatever, they're actually making a movie, and they've taken time to do that and be proud of it and give it to me and ask me to review it. It's hard sometimes to be honest, and I will never get on here and say your movie's a piece of shit. I will try to be constructive. And it's really, really hard because you don't want to actually blast anybody because they did work hard on a project. Just because I didn't get it or don't appreciate what their artistic value was in doing it doesn't fall on the viewer or on me for reviewing it. So I'd never get on here unless it is a major Hollywood film and this filmmaker has been making movies forever, which I have done, and I got blasted for not supporting these people, the filmmakers. And I said, it had good points, it had this, it had that, but overall, I'm really disappointed because of the love I've had for other projects they've done, and this was just bubblegum wrapped up and thrown in our face, something like that. So it is hard, but if someone's going to take the time to reach out to me and not some other guy, or maybe them as well, but take the time to reach out to me personally, I'm honored by that. I truly am, because they took the time, and I will never say no to any film or project or artwork or music or, hey, I'm involved in this. Can I get an interview? Because I get that too. I get submissions all the time through my email. This is what I'm doing. Would you mind? So forth and so on. And I eat that up. I really do.
Do you have any interest of ever appearing in like a horror film or
I
doing
actually,
anything?
I actually was physically in one film right before COVID, a small indie horror that took place up in North Jersey. Met some great, great people in the film. It was my first time ever in front of camera. Um, I not to make my head any bigger than it is naturally. Thanks again, Dad. But there were two SAG actors and a professional DP in the film, and I was given uh, a lot of praise, which really kind of got me the buzz of wanting more. And I have since actually written a small script for a holiday horror film. If anybody looks at this face and this beard, you might get an idea of where it's going. And yes, it does star me. And actually, as I mentioned, Tony Covington, Hack, is actually taking a great interest in possibly trying to make the film. So I would love to. I just something about it, man. You either want more or you don't. And after that one day, and I have done voiceovers for two small little projects that were out there also. But yes, I would absolutely love to try and do more acting.
Now that we are in like the spooky season of the year,
Mhm.
if you could recommend a few films for people to watch, like around Halloween, that you think, are really classic or great horror movies, they could be new or old. Do you have some top recommendations for people out there?
This is something that I think long and hard about. I really, really do. And when I ask people, hey, what's your favorite Halloween movie? I don't mean Michael Myers. I mean your favorite Halloween season. And with that being said, I'm very, very critical on that because the atmosphere has to be perfect. The setting has to be perfect. You have to see jack-o'-lanterns up and down the road and kids trick-or-treating. You can't just see one or two pumpkins here or there. You've got to put the effort in as a filmmaker, in my opinion, if you're going to call it a Halloween themed movie. So with that being said, to answer your question, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to drag that out, but just the other night I was sitting and I was on TV and for whatever reason scrolling through and Trick or Treat came on. One of my all-time favorites. Yes, it was big money, big production. I think it's probably the epitome of a perfect Halloween themed movie. That's just me. The story was told so beautifully, how it all intertwined with each other, the characters, even just the darkness of the film. It made you feel like you were walking around on a dark, crisp, cool Halloween night.